Hi there, my name is Pizza Rashid. In this video, I'm going to be talking about variables and data types in C Sharp. Before you start, I want you to open up this URL. Whatever code examples I use in this video are written step by step here. Code examples have been given a link to quickly test it and see the results in an online editor without writing a single word. I will also leave all the links at the end and in the description of this video. Let's get started. So, what is variable? If you look into the dictionary, you will find that variable is anything which is not consistent. In programming, a variable is something you want the computer to remember while your program is running. Basically, variable is a name given to a computer memory location for storing data, which can be reused throughout the program. These are considered primary method for moving information around. Remember, variable is always defined with a data type. That means it will hold the value of a specific data type, for example, string, integer, float, etc. To avoid compile time error, always assign value to a variable before using it. C# is a strongly typed language. That's why every variable has a type. Basically, compiler uses type information to make sure that all the operations in your code are type safe. You create a variable by declaring its type. This must be one of the valid data types like string, int, float, etc. And then giving it a name as its identifier. When you declare a variable, the computer knows that it has to reserve a place in its memory for this variable. Actually, you cannot just choose any sequence of characters as a variable name. Instead, C# has some rules regarding the variable names that must be followed. These are: name should be camel case, meaning first letter of the first word is lowercase, while the first letter of every subsequent word is uppercase. You can name the variable whatever you like, but it should be meaningful and descriptive. And more here. So the valid and invalid names are: remember, name is case sensitive. Here is the declaration example. To initialize a variable, you need to assign a value. This is done by naming the variable, followed by an equal sign and then value. Here is the example. While you can declare a variable and assign it a value in two separate steps, it is also possible to do both of them at the same time on a single line like this. Here is the example. This type of variable is called explicitly typed local variable, where type is explicitly defined. C# 3.0 introduced implicitly typed variable with the var keyword. Now you can declare a local variable without giving it an explicit or real type. The variable still receives a type at compile time, but the type is provided by the compiler. Actually, the var keyword instructs the compiler to infer the type from the expression on the right side. It just means that the compiler determines and assigns the most appropriate type for your variable. Remember, var is optional and it's just for convenience. Here is the example. I am using this online editor for the demo. Let's start with the basic one, int data type, short for integer. Integer in math is a whole number without any decimal points. Remember, a variable is always defined with a type. This is how I declare a variable with an int data type. It will assign area in memory that will store integer. This is called declaration of variable. It is important to note here that all the data types are reserved words called keywords that have a special meaning for the compiler. You can see all the keywords in the code editor are blue by default. If I misspelled keyword, program won't run or build. You can see the error here. Remember the variable naming rules, especially this one. I'm going to change A to something meaningful. Now you know what to store in this variable just by looking at it. Let's use the variable. This write line is the pre-written method used to print out the value. If you try to use the variable that hasn't been declared, your code won't compile. On the other hand, if you try to use the variable without assigning a value, also causes an error. In this case, the compiler tells you that something is wrong. See this error detail here. Actually, C# enforces a definite assignment policy, meaning you need to initialize the local variable with the value before using it. Let's assign a value and try again. This is called initialization of a variable. This assignment operator takes the value on the right side and assign it to the variable on the left. That's the actual data that goes inside a variable. C# automatically looks at the variable name and into the area of memory that contains age variable to print out the value. You can see the output here. Let's declare few more variables. If variables are of the same type, like age and weight, both are int type, then you can define these variables in the same statement in the form of a comma-separated list. Or on a separate line like this. If variables are of different types, then use semicolon separated statements like this. In order to initialize the variable with a value, you simply have to use the assignment operator. On the left side of the operator is the variable name, and on the right side is the value. Let's print out the variable values using WriteLine method. This is to confirm that the variables contain the values. Once variable declared with a type, it cannot be redeclared with a new type and cannot be assigned a value that is not compatible with its declared type. This is very important point. For example, you cannot declare an int and then assign it a boolean value of true or false. If I try to do this, compiler will tell you that something is wrong, and the editor underlines true with a red squiggly line. You can see the error here. That means C# is preventing you from putting boolean value into integer. If I try to assign a string to an age variable like this, or this, result would be compile time error, because string value cannot be assigned to an int type variable. You can also combine the declaration and initialization statements at the same time on the same line, which is more convenient. Click Run. Everything is fine. Let's replace all the types with the var keyword. Using var is very convenient, but use it only when the type is obvious from the right side of the assignment. Code is working fine. Now the variables are implicitly typed local variables. I have already told you, var keyword instructs the compiler to infer the type of the variable from the expression on the right side. Remember, var can only be declared and initialized in a single statement. Otherwise, the compiler doesn't have anything from which to infer the type.